Throughout its long and colorful history, tiny Delaware has always looked to the water, to the east, to the great river that bears its same name, ever widening into that great tidal estuary known as Delaware Bay. Mighty watercourse for commerce and industry, highway of trade, corridor of transportation for 3 centuries, yet the Delaware River and its bay serve another purpose, essential link in a transportation route of a far different sort. For here too come birds of many species and varieties in their ancient ancestral migrations up and down the Atlantic coast. Central to their preservation and well-being is a patch of shoreline barely 10 feet above sea level, but high in its significance to the world's wildlife. It is America's gem on the Delaware. The people of the first state have had the wisdom to preserve wild places and the creatures that depend on them. Strung like a strand of pearls down the western edge of Delaware Bay, a series of state and federal refuges and management areas for wildlife. Foremost among these vital patches of tidal salt marsh, freshwater swamps, and cordgrass meadows is the curiously named Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge. What the early Dutch settlers called Boomsjes Hoek, or Little Tree Point, we now know as Bombay Hook. Critical intersection on the Atlantic coast for birds, midway between northern breeding grounds and southern wintering spots. Because of its strategic location along the Great Atlantic Flyway, Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge is an autumn way station for hundreds of thousands of ducks and geese, where they fuel up on their long journey. And in spring, Delaware Bay is North America's next to largest gathering area for migratory shorebirds, second only to Alaska's Copper River Delta. Entrusted with the care of this unique place are the men and women of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They actively manage this 16,000-acre refuge to enhance what nature has bestowed on this fascinating stretch of Delaware coast. It is just one of more than 540 such refuges throughout the nation, where we work to conserve wildlife and habitat for you. Like many, you too have probably been lured here by the reputation that Bombay Hook has in birding circles. Here is where you'll see teal and pintails in October, snow geese and Canadas through the winter, yellowlegs and willets in the spring, and warblers in profusion every May. Nearly 300 species of birds have been recorded here. Many birders consider us the East Coast's premier birding site. We draw 100,000 visitors a year. There is always something happening at Bombay Hook. But we offer much, much more to both the serious birder and the casual visitor. Your adventure starts at Refuge headquarters off Whitehall Neck Road, where our visitor center features environmental education programs, exhibits, literature, and helpful tips for spotting wildlife. First-time visitors find that Bombay Hook's 12-mile auto tour route offers a good orientation to the refuge and its residents. A slow, unhurried pace affords your best window on wildlife. You'll be driving on top of dikes that form the skeleton of the refuge. These man-made structures separate marsh from pond, saltwater from freshwater, allowing us to manage for a variety of species. 4 large pools help to grow the plants that draw waterfowl. Ducks and geese dine on succulent emergent greenery. Later, when we draw down the pools, the shorebirds come. They probe the mudflats for invertebrates and tempting marine creatures, or dine on the delectable egg clusters of Atlantic horseshoe crabs, deposited along the shoreline of Delaware Bay each spring. Your auto expedition will be driving on history too. Shortly after Bombay Hook was created in 1937 as a federal refuge, the CCCs arrived. African American enrollees in the Civilian Conservation Corps lent their pick and shovel labor to the cause of conservation. They built the dike and causeway that draw the birds today to Raymond and Finnis impoundments. Honeycombing the refuge are many canals and tidal streams called guts that meander along, bringing Delaware Bay water to refuge marshes, helping to maintain just the right saltiness for wildlife and plants. All contribute to a vast interlocked system of water flow that supports the habitat necessary for birds, mammals, and plants. The job of wildlife management involves working actively with nature. Sheerness Pool, the refuge's largest, supports the largest concentrations of waterfowl. Depending on time of year, you'll spot pintail, ruddy ducks, and black ducks, double-crested cormorants, and the occasional avocet or stilt. To the east, along Delaware Bay, you'll see dunlins, sandpipers, and dowitchers in spring when mudflats are exposed. Some have flown non-stop to Bombay Hook from South America. After a 2-week stay, they're on to the Arctic for breeding. At Sheerness Pool, you'll have added opportunities to strike out by foot. Along our Parson Point Trail, you might spot a solitary northern harrier hunting its prey of voles and rice rats, or a majestic bald eagle soaring high over the treetops. Our boardwalk trail leads you through an upland forest of sweet gum, persimmon, and wild cherry trees, where the music of gray catbirds, orchard orioles, and brown thrashers accompanies your trek to a tidal salt marsh. Crossing the marsh, you'll skirt a tidal stream called Raymond Gut. You'll be guided by marsh wrens and fiddler crabs. Ours is the largest unaltered stretch of salt marsh north of Virginia. When you venture through the upland portions of the refuge, the scenery changes and the species can become even more colorful. Prime woodlands are scarce in Delaware, and forests are important habitats for songbirds and raptors at Bombay Hook. Fields amount to roughly 40% of our upland habitat. You'll notice a blend of natural and cultivated fields, demonstrating how we work with nature to produce the right mix of food and cover for migrating and nesting species. Agricultural crops augment the natural supply of food, especially for migratory geese. Along upland paths, you'll probably spot American goldfinches and monarch butterflies at the edges of fields and grasslands. That's the sharp whistle of the northern bobwhite, a common field resident. And a fleeting glimpse of one of our flashy but uncommon birds, like the prothonotary warbler or the red-headed woodpecker, can be the highlight of the day. Amateur botanists, too, will have a field day at Bombay Hook. 14 species of ferns grow in shady, moist corners of the refuge, viewable along both Bear Swamp and Parson Point trails. Spring brings the stately jack-in-the-pulpit from the forest floor. The pink and white rose and marshmallows bloom in late summer along refuge pools. The showy orange blossoms of the butterfly weed draw insects and butterflies all summer long. You'll see us hard at work, actively balancing wildlife and available habitat too. No other species dominates our tidal marshes in late fall and early winter more than greater snow geese. From Canada's Baffin Bay and Greenland they come, peaking in November and remaining until March, 100,000 strong. Snow geese can quickly eat out cordgrass and damage available salt marsh habitat. It's a visible reminder that management on a national wildlife refuge means active management. Control of invasive non-native species, hunting, and use of fire all are tools we use to produce the right balance of appropriate habitat and population numbers. As you close your tour of Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge, you'll find the historic Alley House on Dutch Neck Road just beyond Bear Swamp Pool. The Alley House, which has stood on Bombay Hook since 1753, tells us that humans too have a place in nature and a role in the environment.
But it was supposedly cleaned up.
The public servants of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service carefully manage unique places like Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge for the continuing benefit of the American people. Here in this old landscape by the sea, where the hand of man has been felt for centuries, a careful nurturing of something far greater continues as each season unfolds and as the years elapse. For here, with the ebb and flow of the tide, the cycles of life continue. The horseshoe crabs return as they have for eons, drawing the shorebirds, which are followed by the snow goose, the ruddy duck, the kestrel, and the belted kingfisher. Some stay the year. The tenure of others is measured in hours. All endure because of this place and the work of its people. You too have been drawn to Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge. You may come back again and again, or you may leave with your memories, never to return. You too are among the visitors to this America's Gem on the Delaware. Wherever you may next go, be touched by this place and the things that you witness here.